Johnny Carson projected cool confidence from behind that Tonight Show desk, but certain moments made television's unflappable king visibly crack. Animal attacks, guest meltdowns, and humiliating pranks pushed Carson beyond his famous composure into genuine discomfort. Buckle up because the incidents you're about to hear had Johnny silently fuming while the cameras rolled, thinking, "Get me off this set now." Animal expert Jim Fowler promised a well-behaved toucan. During rehearsal, the bird perched calmly on his arm, but when the red light blinked on, the toucan spotted Carson's silver hair, squawked, and launched itself directly at Johnny's head. Talons gripped his perfectly coiffed locks while the bird's wings flapped wildly against his ears. Carson froze, eyes widening in panic. "Is that thing using my head as a nest?" he quipped, voice unnaturally high. The audience roared. Johnny didn't. Crew members watched his fingers tighten around his pencil, the telltale sign of Carson's internal temperature rising. The toucan's handler lunged forward, but the damage was done. Johnny's immaculate hair now resembled a storm-tossed haystack. During the commercial break, Carson disappeared backstage. He returned with freshly combed hair and a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. That evening, NBC received a memo. Effective immediately, all birds must remain a minimum distance of 4 feet from Mr. Carson at all times. The toucan never appeared on television again, but Johnny's wariness of feathered guests became legendary among staff. Veteran animal trainer Bill Johnson arrived with what he promised was a perfectly docile baby leopard. During rehearsal, the cat purred contentedly in its steel carrier. Johnson assured producers, "She's practically a house cat." Carson, still wary from previous animal encounters, insisted on keeping the carrier closed until cameras rolled. When the segment began, Johnson opened the cage door. The leopard blinked lazily at the studio lights. "See how calm she is?" Johnson whispered. Johnny leaned forward cautiously. In a flash of yellow eyes and spotted fur, the leopard lunged against the bars, claws extended, a primal roar filling the studio. Carson sprawled backwards, chair tipping, legs flying upward. The audience gasped. Studio lights froze. Johnny scrambled up, tie crooked, and quipped, "I just lost 9 lives." But crew members noticed his hands trembling as he shuffled his cards. NBC replayed the fall on blooper specials. Carson hated it. Each airing prompted a stern memo. "Get fresh tape. Retire that clip." He implemented a 3-foot rule. No large predators within 3 feet of the desk. The distance was marked with tape on the studio floor. Months later, when a rival talk show aired the Leopard Lunge, Johnny called NBC legal in a rare fury. "Next time I'll feed their host to a cat." The clip eventually faded from broadcasts, but Carson's distrust of big cats endured for the remainder of his career. Zaza Gabbor glided onto the stage in diamonds and fur, perching not on the guest chair, but directly on the edge of Johnny's desk. She crossed her legs toward him, leaned forward, and in her distinctive Hungarian accent purred, "Johnny, darling, you look so handsome tonight. May I touch your face?" Audience members whooped. Carson's ears reddened beneath his makeup as Gabbor's fingers traced his jawline. He glanced pleadingly toward the control booth while attempting to steer the conversation toward her latest film. "Movie? Who wants to talk about silly movies when we could discuss your divorce instead?" Gabbor teased. "Number 4, wasn't it, darling? Or was it 5? Johnny's jaw tightened. His pencil tapped rapidly against the desktop. The signal producers recognized as imminent danger. "Let's go to commercial," Carson announced, cutting the segment shorter than scheduled. Off camera, he muttered to his producer, "Book me a librarian tomorrow." Despite the awkwardness, ratings spiked dramatically. NBC executives suggested more Gabbor appearances. Johnny declined, saying, "Some guests shine so bright they burn the set. Once is memorable. Twice is a fire hazard." Myrtle Young arrived carrying 2 cookie tins filled with potato chips that resembled famous faces and objects. Her prize collection? With grandmotherly enthusiasm, she displayed one shaped like Abraham Lincoln, another resembling a seahorse. Johnny leaned in, eyes twinkling with genuine interest as she explained her unusual hobby. When Myrtle turned toward the audience to retrieve her next special chip, Johnny snuck his hand below the desk, grabbing a regular Ruffles potato chip. As he crunched it loudly, Myrtle spun around, hand clutching her heart. "Oh, mercy!" she gasped, believing he'd eaten her beloved Lincoln chip. The audience erupted in laughter, but Carson's grin froze as Myrtle's knees visibly buckled. He immediately dropped the chip and grabbed her arm to steady her. Look, your Lincoln is still here," he reassured her quickly. Off air during the commercial break, paramedics hovered nearby while Johnny apologized repeatedly, even offering to replace her entire collection. Myrtle smiled weakly but continued trembling. That night, Carson personally phoned her hotel with another apology and arranged tickets for her family's return visit. After the show, he complained to head writer Raymond Siller, "That landed wrong. Never scare sweet grandmas." For weeks afterward, Johnny replayed the footage, wincing at Myrtle's shocked expression. When a network special later requested the clip for a blooper reel, Carson personally refused. Today, the clip appears only in retrospectives, with Johnny's on-screen comment, "Cruel joke. Lesson learned." Carson cherished his pristine suits, especially the burgundy Botany 500 he wore for season premieres. During an ostensibly harmless cooking segment with celebrity chef Wolfgang Puck, disaster struck. Puck enthusiastically demonstrated flambeing technique with cognac. The flames leapt higher than expected, singeing Carson's immaculate sleeve. Johnny jerked backward, eyes wide. "I believe that's your entree trying to eat me," he quipped, but the tightness around his eyes betrayed genuine alarm. Stage hands rushed forward with fire extinguishers, while Puck apologized profusely. Carson maintained his professional smile, but crew members noted his whitening knuckles. During the break, Johnny examined the charred fabric with barely contained fury. "Estimated damage?" he asked his wardrobe assistant. "It's ruined, sir," came the reply. Carson nodded once, lips pressed into a thin line. The next morning, production staff received a memo. All cooking demonstrations involving open flames must be pre-approved by Mr. Carson personally and tested twice before airtime. Puck wouldn't return to The Tonight Show for 3 years. Madonna strutted onto the set wearing a black bustier, lace gloves, and a smile that practically announced, "Your move, Johnny." Instead of taking the guest chair, she perched provocatively on the corner of Carson's desk, forcing him to lean back in his seat. Her opening line left no doubt about her intentions. "Johnny, I chose you for my first because they say you're gentle," she purred. The audience whooped appreciatively. Carson's ears burned crimson beneath his makeup. Madonna toyed with his question cards, asked if he wore boxers or briefs, then licked her index finger and tapped his coffee mug, whispering, "Too hot." Johnny chuckled nervously, glancing toward the control booth for rescue. Producers were already fielding frantic calls from standards and practices. "That is a nice outfit," Carson managed, struggling to maintain his composure. "Thank you," Madonna replied. "What would you call it if you wanted to buy one for somebody? Not for yourself, of course." "A bustier," Johnny ventured uncertainly. "Mm-hmm," she confirmed, leaning closer. When Carson attempted to steer the conversation toward her world tour, Madonna countered, "Tour? Let's talk about your fantasies instead." The audience erupted again as Johnny signaled for a commercial break faster than ever before. "Off camera," he sighed to his producer, "book me a nun tomorrow." Despite the obvious tension, ratings spiked dramatically. NBC executives urged Carson to schedule more Madonna appearances. Johnny firmly declined, explaining, "Once is memorable, twice is self-destruction." Method actor Dustin Hoffman arrived in character for his upcoming film Midnight Cowboy, refusing to break persona even backstage. He slouched into the guest chair, boots on Carson's desk, drawling in Joe Buck's thick Texas accent. Johnny attempted normal interview questions, but Hoffman responded only as his character would. "So Dustin, about working with director John Schlesinger." "Name's Joe, partner," Hoffman interrupted, lazily chewing gum. "And I don't know no Schlessin whatever." The audience laughed uncertainly. Carson's smile tightened. The pencil taps accelerated to a frantic drumbeat. For 15 excruciating minutes, Johnny tried different approaches, while Hoffman remained stubbornly in character. Producers in the control booth watched in horror as their tightly scheduled show derailed. During the commercial break, Carson spoke through gritted teeth to his producer, Fred de Cordova. "Either he drops the cowboy act, or I'm leaving." When the cameras returned, Hoffman had mysteriously transformed into himself, answering questions professionally. Backstage afterward, Johnny established what became known as the character rule. All guests must appear as themselves unless specifically agreed upon in advance. Chevy Chase bounded onto the stage like he still owned Saturday Night Live. He slapped Johnny's desk hard, shouted, "How you doing, America?" and proceeded to answer Carson's first question with a 3-minute monologue. When Johnny tried redirecting him with Chevy about the film, Chase steamrolled ahead, mocking Carson's tie, coffee mug, and even making jokes about the studio balconies. Carson's telltale pencil tapping intensified, slow taps signaling mild annoyance, rapid fire indicating danger. Tonight, the taps resembled a drum solo. Chase ignored all warning signs and slapped Johnny's shoulder with unnecessary force. A hush fell over the audience. Johnny's reply remained ice cool. "Touch me again. You'll host alone." Laughter covered the tension, but Chevy finally settled back in his chair, momentarily subdued. In the green room after the show, Carson skipped his customary thank you. Instead, he asked the talent coordinator, "Did he rehearse?" When told no, Carson replied simply, "Then book him on any show that doesn't tape here." For decades afterward, Chevy's name remained conspicuously absent from the Tonight Show guest board. Years later, when asked why he never invited Chase back, Carson paused thoughtfully before answering, "I like guests who share the ball, not steal it." Viewers never again saw Chevy Chase on Johnny's couch. Johnny had meticulously prepared for his interview with acclaimed physicist Stephen Hawking, reading A Brief History of Time twice, and consulting with science writers about intelligent questions. As the segment began, Johnny launched into a thoughtful query about black hole radiation. Before Hawking could respond through his speech synthesizer, comedian Robin Williams burst onto the set in an unscheduled appearance. "Hello, universe," Williams shouted, spinning Carson's chair and unleashing a manic improvisation about space exploration featuring at least 7 different character voices. The audience erupted in laughter. Hawking seemed amused. Carson was not. His carefully crafted scientific discussion dissolved into chaos as Williams bounced around the set, unstoppable as a hurricane. Johnny's expression cycled from surprise to annoyance to resignation, all while maintaining a professional smile. After the segment, Carson disappeared into his dressing room without his customary goodbyes to the crew. The next day, head writer Raymond Siller received explicit instructions. Surprise guest appearances must be cleared with Mr. Carson personally, no exceptions. Williams later sent an apology gift, an antique telescope with a note reading, "For stargazing, not star crashing." Carson kept the telescope but implemented the new policy permanently. A baby elephant's entrance initially delighted the studio audience, until bright camera lights spooked the animal. After a low rumble and telltale tail lift, a steaming cascade hit the studio floor. Johnny gagged visibly, waving his hand toward Ed McMahon while quipping, "I believe Ed ordered takeout." Stagehands rushed forward with buckets but slipped in the spreading mess. Carson quickly relocated his chair 3 feet upstage and continued telling jokes over the unmistakable stench. Television viewers saw only tight camera shots, but wide-angle footage later leaked showing the full extent of the disaster. Afterward, Carson ordered plastic sheeting for all future large animal segments and doubled the hazard pay for studio janitors. He also banned elephant acts entirely for 2 years. In private, he confided to bandleader Doc Severinsen, "I like a good story, but I don't need it steaming under my chair." Johnny took pride in his golf game, often joking about his single-digit handicap. When professional golfer Lee Trevino visited the show, producers arranged a putting demonstration on a custom green installed on stage. Carson confidently accepted Trevino's challenge to a 3-putt contest. Trevino sank all 3 putts effortlessly. Johnny, normally skilled, missed every one. With each failure, the audience's laughter grew louder. Carson's neck reddened visibly as he bent for his 3rd attempt. The ball rolled painfully past the hole. Trevino offered mock consolation, patting Johnny's back perhaps harder than necessary. "Maybe stick to telling jokes, amigo," Trevino suggested with a wink. Carson chuckled on camera, but backstage he fumed. "He switched my putter," Johnny insisted to longtime sidekick Ed McMahon. "The weight was completely different." Whether true or paranoia, Carson implemented a new rule. No more competitive demonstrations with professionals on air. Games would be played only during rehearsals to ensure they showcased Carson favorably. Crew members dubbed it the no humiliation policy. Johnny treated Joan Rivers like family. He let her guest host during his absences, coached her timing, and shared secret notes that no other comedian ever saw. When Joan killed on Monday nights, Johnny beamed like a proud father, until the night of October 3rd, 1986. Joan and her husband Edgar quietly flew to Los Angeles, met Fox executives at a hotel near LAX, and signed a contract for a brand new show that would directly compete with The Tonight Show in the same time slot. Fox sweetened the deal with a promise of total creative control. Rivers loved the freedom, but dreaded telling Johnny personally. She called NBC, learned Carson was taping, and told herself, "I'll explain tomorrow." Unfortunately, Variety broke the story that same afternoon. During rehearsal, Ed McMahon handed Johnny the hot-off-the-press newspaper. Johnny read the headline, "Rivers Defects to Fox," and turned white. He slammed his pencil down so hard it snapped in two. Crew members froze in place as Johnny walked off the set, shut his dressing room door, and lit a cigarette, something he rarely did before tapings. That night, he performed the show on autopilot, skipping several jokes about Joan that had been prepared on the cue cards. Rivers later claimed she tried calling Johnny's direct line 4 times. His assistant, Helen Kushnick, insisted no such calls came through. Johnny told friends afterward, "If she wanted to reach me, she had my home number, my office number, and the private line on the stage wall. All 3 stayed silent. The disconnect fed a wound that never healed." The next morning, Carson called NBC's West Coast president with a direct order, "Pull every clip." Montage editors received instructions. No more Joan and anniversary specials, no sound bites and promo reels, no Monday night reruns. A red stamp reading Rivers off limits was placed on her file. Fox launched The Late Show starring Joan Rivers. Its debut outrated The Tonight Show by half a rating point. Johnny said nothing on air, but in his monologue that week, he slipped in a pointed comment. "Remember, folks, loyalty is a boomerang. You throw it out, it comes right back unless you drop it." The audience laughed, but industry insiders felt the blade. Johnny confided to writer Ray Siller, "She was my successor in spirit, and she sold that for a neon backdrop." He then did something completely uncharacteristic. He shredded old memos containing her jokes, an unheard of ritual for the famously archival host. Joan tried for years to apologize. She sent letters, Christmas baskets, even a painting of Carson's beloved Nebraska farmhouse. Every gift was marked "Return to Sender." Carson died in 2005, still refusing to speak her name. When Joan finally sat on the Tonight Show couch again in 2014, she patted the armrest and whispered, "Miss you, Johnny." Viewers felt the echo of a friendship that had burned brighter and ended colder than any in late-night television history. Practical jokes were Tonight Show staples, but one crossed Johnny's invisible line. During a 1987 Earth Day special, producers secretly arranged for the studio's air conditioning to be turned off. As temperatures climbed under the hot lights, Carson's makeup began visibly melting. Sweat patches spread across his impeccable suit. Johnny tugged uncomfortably at his collar while interviewing environmental activist Debbie Sinclair. "Is it hot in here, or is it just global warming?" he joked weakly, unaware he was the punchline. After 15 sweltering minutes, producer Fred de Cordova finally revealed the prank on air. The audience howled with laughter as Carson's expression transformed from discomfort to comprehension to barely concealed rage. "You're all fired," he announced with a tight smile that suggested he wasn't entirely joking. During the break, Johnny stormed backstage, changing his sweat-soaked shirt. He returned professional as ever, but the following day, a new policy materialized. Environmental conditions in Studio One are not to be altered for any reason without Mr. Carson's explicit approval. The pranksters received formal reprimands, and climate control became sacrosanct for the remainder of Carson's tenure. Farah Fawcett walked onto the set in a silver jumpsuit, her hair resembling a shampoo commercial, eyes darting erratically across the studio lights. Publicly, she was America's golden girl. Privately, friends later revealed she had barely slept after red-eye flights and exhausting press junkets. Johnny asked about her new film, Saturn III. Farah giggled, mistakenly calling it Saturday 3, then launched into a disconnected story about roller skating in Malibu. Carson's smile tightened noticeably as his pencil taps quickened. She spoke enthusiastically about surfing, then suddenly glanced at the band, remarking, "The trumpets have such pretty colors." Johnny attempted to refocus. "Let's see the film clip." "Later, later," Farah waved dismissively. "I'm vibing right now." Viewers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Audible coughs echoed through the studio. Farah leaned forward confidentially and whispered, "Sometimes I dream I'm a dolphin." Johnny raised an eyebrow and replied gently, "And do you wake up wet?" The line earned nervous laughs but didn't slow Farah's spiral. Off air, Carson hissed desperately to producer Fred de Cordova, "Help me." Fred suggested cutting the segment short, but NBC's control room refused, declaring it ratings gold. Johnny sighed, straightened his tie, and faced the red light again. Farah picked invisible lint from Johnny's lapel, interrupted herself mid-sentence, and openly admired the boom microphone, declaring, "It's like a huge lollipop." Johnny, ever the professional lifeguard, rapped quickly, "Farrah Fawcett, folks. The movie opens Friday. Wear your seatbelts." Backstage, Johnny slammed his dressing room door and instructed staff never to book a guest who was coming in hot. The press speculated Farah was intoxicated. Her agent blamed migraine medication. Johnny publicly wished her well, but privately instituted what became known as the Farah Protocol. Firm requirements for rest, rehearsals, and a ban on energy drinks before airtime. Late-night hosts still cite Farah's visit as the masterclass in interview derailment. Clips racked up millions of views titled "Car Crash TV" before YouTube existed. For Carson, it remained Exhibit A of how a single guest could transform his controlled kingdom into utter chaos. Yet he still found a joke on the way out, proving why he remained king. From rogue elephants to career-ending betrayals, from flaming sleeves to melting makeup, Johnny Carson weathered on-air disasters with outward charm while seething inside. Each crisis spawned a new rule, gradually transforming The Tonight Show into television's most tightly controlled environment. The king of late night might have looked unflappable to millions of viewers, but behind that desk sat a man who hated surprises almost as much as he loved entertainment. Smash that like button if one of these moments surprised you, and subscribe for more untold television drama that proves even legends have their breaking points.